Hello listeners everywhere. Welcome to the Archive of Audio Antiquities, a voyage into the vaults of wonders on the wireless. In a moment, Simon Exton and Ken Moss will be here to speak to you.
Hello everyone, and a very warm welcome back to the Archive of Audio Antiquities. I'm Ken Moss.
I'm Simon Exton.
This time we're listening to a radio sitcom. It's tomorrow, today.
Just imagine, as you sit at home beside your wireless set, that we can travel forward in time. No longer will we hear the familiar sounds of 1961, the voices of Kenneth Horne, Wilfred Pickles, or the Prime Minister, Mr. Harold Macmillan. Instead, we will hear the fantastically futuristic sounds of the year 2006. Rocket ships, hover cars, and robots. Because this is the world of the future, where anything can happen, and often does.
This was written by Christopher William Hill, broadcast on Radio 4 between 2006 and 2008, itself a spoof of radio science fiction dramas of the late 50s and early 60s. The sitcom takes place in a BBC studio in 1961, where a group of bright young things and ageing actors produce a futuristic drama set in the year 2006.
Hugo, the Martian ambassador's line on the next page, Grimar, Etlak, Imar, what is that?
It's a Martian language.
Oh.
And this all comes out of your head. How wonderful.
Would you like me to do a different accent for the Martian? Grimar, Etlak, Imar, or perhaps Grimar, Etlak, Imar.
Darling, you're stretched way beyond your capabilities with Welsh.
How about RP? Imagine the Martians have been tuning into the BBC.
If it was me, I'd refuse to speak in made-up languages.
But it isn't up to you, Sylvia, is it?
Well, things can only get worse in the next series. I mean, worse than they are at the moment, which is bad enough. Silly, silly, silly.
I didn't know you felt so strongly.
Well, I do.
Then you'll be delighted to know that there's not going to be a second series.
I beg your pardon.
What?
Mr. Winnard's decided not to recommission any more episodes. I have to say, the way I'm feeling at the moment, I don't care if I never bloody well work with any of you ever again.
Starring Peter Bowles, Cheryl Campbell, and John Glover. This also features John Fortune and... what's his name?
Well, there's an appearance from Mr. Leslie Phillips himself.
There is. I'm looking at the listing here on the Oracle, and Gary Waldhorn is in it, but he's not listed on the website, but he's definitely in it. Sounding, it has to be said, a country mile from how we know him. His voice was aging very badly by the mid-2000s, it seems. Dr. Exton, do you have any alumni for us?
Leslie Phillips.
Who was in a couple of the Big Finish audios.
And a number of other professionally produced things.
You're a harsh man, Dr. Exton.
You open yourself up to that every single time.
Would you like to give us a bit of background as to why you've suggested this one?
Because I remember liking it at the time. I'm afraid that's as in-depth as it went. I quite liked this, so I suggested it, and I hadn't actually listened to it since the time it's been broadcast. It's not as good as I remember.
Well, to give a little bit of colour, I'm going to read again from the Oracle. The lead roles are played by Peter Bowles and Cheryl Campbell, and their characters hate their jobs only slightly more than they hate each other. Their off-mic conversations are laced with carping comments and innuendo about each other's long-lost youth and popularity. Sylvia, played by Cheryl Campbell, was once the voice of Listen with Mother. The comic relief for the radio production is provided by a stereotypical Welshman, Taffy Jones, played by non-Welsh actor John Glover.
Who then goes on to become Jock McTavish when they kill off Taffy.
He does.
With no discernible change in accent.
I've listened to the first few episodes of the first series. As a concept, a spoof of a spoof, sort of, really. They've just not quite got the chutzpah to go far enough with it. I think if they really ramped up the piss-taking, they could have had absolute comedy gold on their hand here. That's my gut feeling, my first comment about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think this has the potential to be an extremely good one-off play. And as you say, just throw everything that they've peppered throughout the series, make it a 90-minute, properly plotted, not repetition of the week, which is kind of what this ended up as. There was a lot of, weren't the 1960s staid and weird, and we're so much better now. And certainly that was wearing very, very thin by the time the second series came along.
It does get tired very quickly. I'm just looking at them. There were 10 episodes produced over 2 series.
Yeah, it was a 4 and a 6, wasn't it?
It was, yeah, which means that I must have listened to the whole of the first series. It just doesn't really seem to go anywhere. The whole thrust of it seems to be that they are constantly battling for their own survival. And in order to do that, they start introducing sort of pseudo-political subplots into there.
Well, I mean, one of the regular characters is a government liaison who blatantly uses or attempts to use it as a kind of propaganda. I mean, very unsuccessfully, and that's where some of the humour comes from. But yeah, it doesn't really gel all that well, which is a pity because it's a very nice concept.
I mean, to go through the episodes that I've listened to, the first one is called Dial M for Martian. Based in 1961, they're battling to save their futuristic soap opera right from the word go. Then in the second episode, having saved it because they've dropped in all sorts of anti-Russian sentiments, the lead actress uses it to win a cigarette advertising deal. Now, the actual concept of that was fairly amusing. I mean, there were a couple of sort of smirks as I was listening to this because it was so blatantly peppered through. Even the other cast were aghast at how blatant it was.
Yes, and that is kind of the high... Oh, no, actually, Leslie Phillips playing the android who can't remember his lines, and Sylvia draping herself all over him.
Is that Androids in Love when leading thespian Sir Monty joined? Yes.
It turns out he's lost his ability to remember lines even when they're written on the page in front of him. So his revival of his career with King Lear, at which he's offered her Claudine or Goneril, or one of the sisters anyway, is obviously never going to go anywhere. And apparently he keeps doing these things and then falls out at the last minute because he can't remember the script. But she doesn't realise this. That was quite fun. There are a lot of fun bits in it. I did enjoy listening to it, just not as much as I remember. And I suspect other ones that I was listening to at the time, like the Maltby Collection, may end up tarred with the same brush.
I haven't listened to any of the second series, but while we were exchanging notes off mic, you did say that the second series is better than the first.
Kind of. Though I think the best episode of the lot is one that's in the second series, which is where they decide to do some outside broadcast and get stranded on an island in the Thames overnight. Is it Douglas, the lead actor? Anyway, the lead actor has started dating this Friends of the Earth vegetarian and is very newly into wildlife preservation. And there are these particularly rare birds that only nest on one island in the Thames. So you can see where this is going. The only thing that they can find to eat is these birds. So so they eat them all. They eat every last breeding pair. And then when they're rescued, there's his new girlfriend there just as he's munching his way through the last of these warblers. The final bit is he no longer regards her book of endangered birds as a call to action. It's more a recipe book.
Unfortunately, the only island I can think of in the Thames is the one that Ian Hendry bought a house on.
Well, there's the one that Jordan North got stuck on.
You know more about this than I do.
It's quite sweet. He tried to rescue a dog that was getting into trouble in the Thames, and both he and the dog ended up on this tiny little island and needing rescuing from the Coast Guard. And the Coast Guard were making as many miles out of it as they possibly could, saying, "We applaud Jordan for his heart, but please next time just let us know and we'll come and sort it."
I'm just looking through again on the Oracle. In the second series, set in 1962, Hugo is commissioned to devise a science fiction series for children's television. And thanks to a series of mishaps on the way to Television Centre, has the idea for Professor Fabula and the Dialogues, featuring a science who travels through space and time in a police call box accompanied by a robotic dog. The idea is squelched due to salacious interpretations of the professor's status as a single man wandering in time and space with a dog. I wish I'd have heard that one.
That one's quite good. I mean, it's very single joke right the way through. But it's quite a nice single joke.
Can't you go any faster?
I'm going as fast as I can.
Why aren't you writing, Hugo?
The typewriter's hurting my legs.
Type!
Professor Fabula travels in time and space in a giant clock.
Do you have a name for the time machine, Hugo?
The automated robotic doorway in time.
Hardly trips off the tongue.
Referred to by its punchy acronym.
Yes?
TARDIT.
Tarded. Inspired.
We're going to be late.
If we don't get to TV Centre in the next half an hour, and if I haven't come up with something at least resembling a formal proposal, then it's goodbye television.
Goodbye, Tiara.
Goodbye, Mayfair Flat.
Goodbye, starring role. Tight, damn it!
Put your foot on it, Nigel.
Put my foot on it. This is a Humber snipe. You treat a Humber snipe as you would treat a beautiful woman.
There seems to be a running theme with stuff that we listen to, in that there's a lot of Doctor Who-esque jokery going on in the background. Stand Up, Night Terrace.
And there were bits in Ectoplasm as well, weren't there?
There were, yes, very
including
definitely.
Sophie Aldred as the female in distress of the week. And when we get to, I'm sorry, I'll read that again, we get to the electric time trousers.
Again, you may have the jump on me there.
I've told you about this before.
You have, it does ring a vague bell.
You were probably elbow deep in the gin at the time.
Possibly. I do invest heavily in the local economy wherever I can. Let's rate this in earworms.
This is the song that never ends. Yes, it goes on and on, my friends.
As a piece of radio, it did its job. It kept me entertained, and really I can't expect anything more of radio than that. Was I gainfully entertained? Was it sort of appointment listening? Absolutely not. And that's a shame, because I really do think that there's a real gem of an idea. They just didn't go anywhere near far enough. I think if it had been done by somebody, I don't know, like with a bit more of a zany edge, say somebody like the Matt Lucas, David Walliams approach to comedy, where it was ramped up to 10.
Now, let's be honest, if this had been done by the Cabin Pressure cast...
Yes, absolutely, that sort of approach, yes.
So Roger Allam and Stephanie Cole chewing the scenery as the two lead actors, and John Finnemore as the hapless third, and Benedict Cumberbatch as the writer, and Anthony Stewart Head as the BBC bigwig.
Well, you'd have Cabin Pressure too, wouldn't you? But I think it would need John Finnemore's writing as well.
Yeah.
That's a very good comparison. Yeah, I think if this had been done in that sort of style, you'd have an absolute winner. As it stands, it's just a little bit...
It's a little bit also-ran, but, you know, most things are going to be also-ran. Averages are average for a reason.
I'm going to give... Oh, God, I'm going to sound awfully cruel. I like it, but it's only really entertained me because it's on. I'm going to give it a 5. It's a weak lemon drink of radio sitcoms, and I feel really bad saying that because I think there's a gem of an idea in here. It's just not terribly polished.
I'm going to be a little bit more generous to it than that. I did enjoy it. Part of that is a nostalgia from when I was first getting into, or when I was first getting back into radio comedy, because I listened to loads and loads and loads of it when I was a teenager. But that was classic radio comedy. That was The Goons and Round the Horn and I'm Sorry, I'll Read That Again. So stuff that was 20 or 30 years old by the time I was listening to it then, and then was 40 years ago. God, that makes me sound old. Well, I am old. Anyway. And then I kind of rediscovered all of this when I was doing a lot of travelling backwards and forwards from Belfast to see my folks, and then starting medical school and a lot of driving to Cornwall and back again. And then I did a lot of travelling and a lot of listening to radio drama, radio comedy. And this was one of the early ones that I found again on that, a bit like Hut 33 and the Hudson and Pepperdine show. There are loads that I listened to at the time. That fit in with all of those. It didn't have the brilliance of Ectoplasm, but I really enjoyed listening to it. There is a nostalgic element to it, but at the end of the day, it is an entertaining show. Would I have listened to 10 episodes back to back if I hadn't been going to podcast about it? No, but I probably would have listened to all 10 anyway. It's a nice idea that really needed an extra polish, or a good editor, or both. I quite enjoyed this, but it's not brilliant, so I'm going to give it a 7.
And they'll continue singing it forever just because.
It's time for Podcast of the Week. Dr. Exton, what have you got for us this time?
Well, I've, within the last 5 minutes, changed my mind about the podcast of the week, because there was one I was originally going to go for that kind of fit quite well with this. But all this talk about John Finnemore has reminded me that I've just listened to an episode of Comfort Blanket with John Finnemore. Comfort Blanket is a wildly entertaining podcast about people talking in quite a lot of depth about entertainment that makes them happy. And it doesn't really matter what it is. So they've done films and TV shows and music and comics and all sorts of different things. And John Finnemore's pick that I listened to on my way to and from work today was the Ealing comedy The Ladykillers. And weirdly, it's the second thing that I've heard recently praising The Ladykillers, because the most recent Desert Planet picks that Joe Ford does, his guest chose The Ladykillers as their film. Now, that's a few minutes within a chat format, whereas this was over an hour of John Finnemore waxing lyrical, but also taking apart the writing and saying, I love this because this and this and this, and it does this brilliantly, and these characters are wonderful because... So, long story short, I would recommend Comfort Blanket. It's the same married couple that do the Box of Delights podcast, which is their more TV-oriented one, but it was Comfort Blanket that I was listening to today, which is a bit more wide-reaching. Actually, why don't we do both? The podcasts from the Cheese and Pickle Network, they are Box of Delights and Comfort Blanket, and they're both very well worth listening to.
Next time, we are applying salve to the wound, since we have been quite cruel of late to Big Finish.
Have we?
Yes, we savaged the pirates and we weren't overly keen to the Sirens of Time redux. So next time, we are listening to Doctor Who, The Sandman. I got to be honest, I've not heard this for a very, very long time. I do remember enjoying it. And this is one of your suggestions that we fix the fact that we don't actively detest Big Finish, as may come across in some of our pods.
On the other hand, Big Finish stuff has been some of our highest scoring stuff as well. So Spare Parts is one of the few where we've both given it 10 out of 10. We were wildly enthusiastic about the Genocide Machine and the Fearmonger and Dust Breeding. There's lots and lots of Big Finish we've done that we've been wildly enthusiastic about. On the other hand, there's The Secrets of Detsen. Or, when we're really scraping the bottom of the barrel, there's The Lovecraft Invasion.
Oh, dear. Dear. Oh, that. Oh, dear. Oh, dear.
Well, I mean, that was so bad, we had to salve the wound with something good immediately afterwards.
I still feel bad about the Lovecraft Invasion. I still think there's something desperately good trying to get out. It was just smothered in a virtue-signalling relish.
And I agree with you about that. I just think that Lovecraft was unrecordable. If they'd gone for Poe, the story would have worked. Lovecraft on an audio medium, trying to get the Shoggoths in, if you actually know the stories, is just completely unmanageable. Anyway, we're not going back to the Lovecraft Invasion or Spare Parts or any of the other awful and wonderful stuff that we've listened to from Big Finish. We are going to listen to The Sandman. Now, I haven't heard it in a few years, but I have listened to it quite a few times because it's a real favourite, and it's, from memory, an absolute tour de force performance from Annika Wills, because she is completely different to her Polly persona.
So if you want to listen along with us, that is what we'll be listening to before we come back next time.
Even if you don't want to listen to along with us, it's still what we're going to be listening to.
That is true. Thank you for staying the course with us this time, boys and girls. Hope you've enjoyed it. If not, I can only apologise. It is our fault. But we'll be back next time anyway. See you soon.
I'm not apologising for anything.
You never do.
We're here to give opinions. I give an opinion. If you don't like those opinions, well, you don't have to listen.
Hey, look, this isn't Disney.
No, but this is response to an awful lot of comments about the Count Arthur Strong episode.
An awful lot of comments. See our YouTube channel if you want to see some truly...
I read about the first 3 and then got bored.
Oh, God. The Maverick Productions channel, which is the overarching channel for producing all our podcasts, is now on YouTube. And the comments, the number of people that have listened to episode 22, our Count Arthur Strong review, My goodness me, you've all listened to something all the way through just to tell us how much you hated listening to it all the way through. It's glorious.
And yet none of them vote it down.
No, they don't. Oh, we're just encouraging now.
So thank you, strange people, because you're just increasing our listening figures. And I doubt that's what you intend to do. I don't do this because I care what other people think. I do this because I like chatting about this stuff.
We are sounding more and more like Disney here. If you don't like us, then you're the problem. Oh, let's sign this off. Boys and girls, thank you very much. We are very grateful. Whether you love us or hate us, we are grateful for you listening. We shall be back next time.
We'll see you next time.
Ta-ta.
The Archive of Audio Antiquities featured Simon Exton and Ken Moss, and the announcer was Jenny at Blue Box 99. All featured soundtracks are the property of their respective producers, and no infringement of copyright is intended. Title music was by Edward White, and the programme was produced by Maverick Productions. For more information, please visit maverickproductionsuk.blogspot.com or find us on social media.